Okay, I have sanded the 4 flat areas about as much as you can without taking the stem off the pipe, but that's still ahead. The next order of business is to reduce the width of the button to the very nearly the final amount or a final measurement. Now you notice that I both cut it down in length, not quite to its finished thickness, but getting there. And also on the sides here, and it's just slowly by jerks, this entire stem is zeroing in on its final dimensions. And then I put a piece of tape across the end, and that's how I got the width of the button to show up on this pipe in an easy to see way. And the reason for that is the next operation. It's now you can, I suppose, if you're good enough, you can continue to reduce the flats until the whole thing narrows down to where you want it. But to do that and keep everything dead straight is superhuman. I wouldn't try to do it that way. Maybe on a bet I would give it a shot, but there's so much easier ways to do it that it doesn't make any sense. So here's the easiest way I've found when working on a stem like this one, where the sides are to remain straight their entire length. There is no fishtail. There's no, and it's as straight as a ruler, a laser beam. And to do that, we'll first remove it from the stummel, and then put a piece of tape around its most delicate part, which is, of course, the thin razor bladey part right up there by the shank, like so. And that is so we don't go farther than we want to. We can replace the tape as often as necessary in the course of the next operation, which is kind of like topping a bowl. This is the same sheet of paper that I use for that purpose. And I'm holding it with the button between the middle finger and thumb and regulating the pressure on the tenon end with my index finger. Now you have to make sure you keep it vertical, but regulating pressure, you can make sure that most of the material gets removed where you want it to. And this keeps an accident from happening, because if that knife edge, literally now you could cut yourself on that if you tried a little, if that goes farther in than the width of the shank, as usual, you're in trouble. So that's just to protect and to kind of be a guide of when you're touching. And other than that, you can push it in either direction. I find it's probably easiest to do it this way. And you're going to end up with most of this being cut, but not all, of course, right here. So you're going in at a slight angle, and you just have to experiment with pressure and so on. But it quickly becomes a simple and intuitive way to do this. Now, if you were to take one of these emery boards and start going at her like this, again, I'm sure it can be done, but I don't want to be the one to do it. You would just be endlessly checking. Whereas here, the minute you come away from it, you're as straight as a ruler. So, in any event, that's it. I will, as usual, turn off the camera. And the next step we come to, I'll turn it back on. And of course, the white lines that we scribed on the face of this are going to come haunt us soon. So if you've been wondering what that was all about, don't worry, they're about to jump into the game here. Okay, I've been lapping this for the last, 8 or 10 minutes, I guess, and now have narrowed the entire stem at this end to within 1/3 of a millimeter or so of that tape. And I always like to leave a little extra and take it off at the very last step of the day, kind of a thing. And now we have a stem that is perfectly straight to as far as the triangle goes. By triangle, I mean if you look at that just a certain way with the light, and I don't know if I can get the camera to pick it up or not, but there's an extremely long, thin triangle now down the side. And it's widest at this end, and it comes to a needle point right about here, where it lifts up because it's extending onto this elevated piece of tape. Now the next thing we want to do is make sure that the entire length of the side is straight. But listen carefully, do not, I emphasize, do not flatten it an equal amount all the way down. Don't keep scrubbing on this until up here is the same width as it is right there. Oh no, we merely want to extend the apex of this triangle to where it just is visible right here. Now that means we're still not in finished shape, but don't worry, I got you back here. So doing it the same way we did before. Now see, this goes perfectly straight in a taper up to here, and then it turns in a little bit. We want it to be perfectly straight the entire length. And the best way to check that, of course, is here. And again, there's limitations on this video business. I can see the light gap and where it begins, but there's no way I could make it, the camera pick that up. So we'll just rely on the shininess of that apex. And check frequently. Hey, there we go. You can even see where the dust gets picked up. And it doesn't take many strokes or much pressure to cut that razor thin piece down. But keep going until the dust line or the triangle we're creating comes right up to the very edge of that one. There we go. Okay. Now, the beauty of this is I don't even need to check with that square block if we're good to go or not. That's guaranteed. It's as flat as the table. So I'm going to do the other side, and then we're going to be starting to play around with bringing this into its very final form. Now we've got a very small amount of material yet to go to till we cross out or obliterate the white line that we created, but it isn't much. It's about 1/3 of a millimeter or so, a little more than the thickness of the tape that was there. And the button, always categorically leave buttons to be the last thing you do when making stems of any kind. They're easy to damage, and you never know quite what you want until the rest of it's done, sort of a thing. So I'm sure, again, there are people who do it the opposite sequence, but I never was able to make any sense of why they might want to do that. So I'm going to extend the triangle down the other side, get them both straight, and then we will begin to do the final steps to bring this thing into existence here.